The O'Reilly Fact is on tonight.
How dare we turn our backs on Liberia, given the fact that this is a country that was founded in the 1820s, 1830s because of American slavery.
Predictably, race is now being injected into the debate over protecting America from the Ebola virus. We will have a special report.
We had a prisoner of war whose health had deteriorated, and we saw an opportunity and we seized it, and I make no apologies for that.
Is the Army's investigation into Sergeant Bo Bergdahl being compromised by politics? We'll have a factor investigation.
Some of the kids here are really into being naked with each other.
Also ahead, did Jesse Waters force Brown University to cancel Sex Week?
Golly!
Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. More disturbing news about Ebola. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. This man, 33-year-old Ashoka Mukpo, an American freelance cameraman for NBC News, has contracted Ebola in Liberia and is being flown back to the USA for treatment. We asked NBC News exactly how that could happen, since Mr. Mukpo's duties would not ordinarily put him into bodily fluid contact with Ebola victims. No answer yet from NBC. Mr. Mukpo was working with NBC News medical correspondent Dr. Nancy Snyderman, who's also being flown back to America in a private plane. She and her team will be in quarantine for 21 days. The Factor has called for the Obama administration to halt all commercial flights and deny U.S. entry to any person from West Africa until the epidemic subsides. But so far, that request has not been heeded.
There also are screening procedures in place at our border. So as individuals enter the country, they are observed by Customs and Border Patrol and others to protect the broader American public.
But as we've seen with Thomas Duncan, the Liberian national currently isolated with Ebola in Dallas, Texas, screening cannot stop the movement of 6 people because the incubation period for Ebola is up to 3 weeks. So far, at least 13 African countries are restricting people entry from the nations where Ebola is a problem. In addition, British Airways and Air France, among others, have suspended flights to dangerous areas. But the USA has done nothing. Nothing. Does that make sense to you? A possible reason for the inaction is political correctness. Listen to this.
You can't isolate neighborhoods. You can't isolate nations. It doesn't work. And people will talk about, well, we shouldn't allow any flights in from Liberia. I mean, we in America, how dare we turn our backs on Liberia, given the fact that this is a country that was founded in the 1820s, 1830s because of American slavery. We have a responsibility to stay connected with them and help them see this through.
That's insane. Insane. By the way, 3,000 American military people have been ordered to Liberia and other African countries to help out. And that's humane and proper. But civilians are another matter. At a press conference today, the CDC put this out there.
After the initial discussions with the hospital and with the patient, there were approximately 100 individuals that we needed to reach out to. That was the number that we put out yesterday. After reaching out to those individuals, there's now approximately 50 individuals that we feel we need to follow on a daily basis. Now, most of those individuals are at low risk. There are about 10 individuals that are at higher risk, and so we continue to watch those individuals very carefully.
And that's in Dallas, Texas. That's a lot of people. Talking Points despises panic and irrational fear. But thinking ahead and taking precautions is simply responsible policy. Time and again, the Obama administration has failed to do that. Right now, former Secretary of Defense and CIA Chief Leon Panetta is saying the president could have mitigated ISIS if he had only thought ahead and left some troops in Iraq. We'll be speaking with Mr. Panetta this coming Tuesday. Don't miss that. That'll be a very big interview. Now, the Ebola virus will eventually be controlled. I believe that. But right now, action is needed to make sure Americans are protected. So let's get on it, Mr. President. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. Join us from Washington, Dr. Mary Schmidt, who specializes in infectious diseases, and Dr. Martin McCary, a medical doctor who teaches at Johns Hopkins University. So where am I going wrong here, Dr. McCary?
Well, I just think that it sounds logical, but in the context of other infections and threats, more people die of the common cold in the United States. You know, flu virus mutates from China. We don't stop flights from China. I think it's reasonable to limit flights from West Africa. I mean, if you're going to go pick up a rug from your friend Larry in Nigeria, this is not a good year to do it, right? We should only have essential personnel. But I worry that if we have too dramatic of a limitation, we won't get the humanitarian folks in and out.
Well, that's not going to happen because most of the humanitarian aid is gone by private charter, and those things can be arranged fairly easily by the charitable institutions that do it. Military goes on military transport. But there is no reason on earth, on this earth, that right now we should be accepting anyone in this country with a West African passport. It's not protecting the public good, Dr. Schmidt.
Bill, thank you for having me. I do believe that there could be, if the manpower is available, better screening processes.
There isn't
in the
manpower available. If you've ever taken a transatlantic
right.
or transpacific flight, you know the lines to get into this country. You both also know the incubation period. It is
yes.
impossible to stop people infected with Ebola from getting in here by sight. And if you're going to test everybody, the line's going to be backed up to Costa Rica. So let's be real here tonight.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I do agree with you also that we do have somebody who blatantly lied, and I think if people will lie in order to come to the country if they really want to. The other problem we have is transit within these countries and into other countries. Certainly stopping flights would be helpful. I do agree with you there.
All right, good. I'm glad because we want to get something done now.
Yeah.
We're not inhumane here. All right, we want America to go to Africa and help these impoverished nations organize against Ebola, Dr. McCary. But we have an obligation, the federal government does, to protect the folks. And you guys both know that panic is contagious too. And the more the government does, the less the panic will be. Or am I wrong, Dr. McCary?
Well, you know, we've seen MERS recently from the Middle East. We've seen H1N1 talked about a ton. People have this fear that a virus is going to mutate somewhere in the jungle and come through an African person to the United States. The truth is, no one in the U.S. has ever died of Ebola. We shouldn't ignore it, but at the same time, it's not the bubonic plague.
With all due respect, nobody in Dallas, Texas ever had Ebola before. And now they do. And now 50 people are being monitored. So let's get real. I want to get real and get out of the theoretical. And you heard that crazy person on CNN say, oh, we can't do anything about Liberia because they had slavery. Oh, come on. Come on.
It's often sensationalized. You know, there's been 7 outbreaks of Ebola over the last 12 years in Africa. This is the most severe, but we've got good tools to prevent it. Education, keeping people contained, and I think we've done a good job. When Kent Bradley came here, a lot of people said no.
I'm not arguing about what we've done, but what we haven't done is very important. Now, when you heard the report that this man, Duncan, in Dallas was vomiting in the parking lot of his apartment building, Dr. Schmidt, I mean, that sent a chill through my spine. How about you?
Mine also, and I have to say I was quite relieved when I realized they pulled the kids out of school and they pulled the family into quarantine. I think it's necessary. The CDC and the Public Health Department are using an enormous amount of resources, and if this happens 2 or 3 more times, we're going to be running out of federal resources in it to continue the control of this infection. So I do believe that we need to address the potential for 1 or 2 other people to come here, and perhaps your suggestion of doing what other countries are doing, of better screening flights coming in, is not a bad idea.
Well, I hope they do it, because if they don't do it and this thing breaks out, then it's going to be hell to pay. And the other thing, doctors, and I know you can't speculate, is this NBC cameraman. How on earth? Right. How on earth could he have gotten that? Because I've been in these third world nations, and camera people do not interact on the job with people in that proximity. So we need to know exactly how that happened.
And how does Duncan say that he's been to Liberia and go home from the hospital? That's another outrage.
Well, we can't depend on the West Africans to protect Americans. That's truly insane. Doctors, good discussion. We appreciate it very much. Next on the rundown, why is the Army's investigation into Sergeant Bo Bergdahl taking so long? Is there something wrong? We'll have new information for you. And later, Gutfeld and McGurk on the difference between illegal aliens and undocumented people, Nancy Pelosi style. Factors coming right back.